There's something beautiful that happens when we're broken. I know that sounds strange. When you're in the middle of pain, when your heart is shattered, when everything you planned has fallen apart, when you feel like you can't breathe under the weight of your struggles, the last thing you want to hear is that there's something beautiful about it. But stay with me. See, we've been taught to believe that joy is something that happens when life is easy, when everything is going according to plan, when we get what we want, when we're healthy, when the people we love are safe, when our bank accounts are full and our hearts are whole. We think joy is the prize we get for having a perfect life. But that's not joy. That's comfort. That's ease. And there's nothing wrong with comfort and ease. They're blessings. But they're not joy. Joy is something deeper. Joy is something that can exist even in the darkness. Especially in the darkness. Understanding the nature of pain when you're hurting, the first thing you need to understand is this pain is not your enemy. I know it feels like it. I know when you're going through something difficult, it feels like the pain is trying to destroy you. But pain is actually a messenger. It's trying to tell you something. Pain is the soul's way of saying, you've attached your heart to something that was never meant to hold it. Every single time your heart breaks, it's because you placed it somewhere it didn't belong. You placed it in a person who left. You placed it in a dream that died. You placed it in a version of life that didn't come true. And here's the secret they don't tell you. Your heart was never designed to find rest in created things. Your heart is too precious, too sacred, too vast to fit into the small containers of this temporary world. When you try to force your heart into something that was never meant to contain it, of course it hurts when that thing breaks or leaves or changes. But this pain, this very pain you're experiencing right now, is teaching you the most important lesson you'll ever learn. Where your heart truly belongs, the illusion of attachment, we spend our whole lives building. We build relationships, careers, dreams, identities. We say, when I get this, I'll be happy. When I achieve that, I'll be complete. When I'm with this person, I'll be whole. And then we get those things and we're still not whole. Or we lose those things and we feel like we're dying. Why? Because we've made the temporary eternal in our hearts. We've taken things that were always meant to be journeys and turned them into destinations. We've taken people who were always meant to be companions and turned them into saviors. And when you make anything other than the divine, your ultimate source of joy, you're setting yourself up for devastation. Not because those things are bad, they're not. They're beautiful, they're gifts, but they're not God. And when you worship the gift instead of the giver, you will always end up broken. So how do you find joy when you're hurting? You start by loosening your grip. You start by understanding that everything you're holding onto so tightly, it was never yours to begin with. It was always a loan. It was always temporary. And the pain you're feeling right now is the cost of treating a loan like a possession, where the light enters. But here's where it gets beautiful. Here's where the transformation happens. Your brokenness, that shattering you're experiencing right now, it's not the end of your story. It's the beginning. Because when you break, when life cracks you open, something miraculous happens, light gets in. Think about it. When were you closest to the divine? Was it when everything was perfect? Or was it when you had nowhere else to turn? Was it when you were strong? Or was it when you were on your knees, broken and desperate, crying out in the middle of the night? Your lowest moments are often your highest points of connection. Your weakest moments are when you're actually the strongest, because you finally stopped pretending you can do this alone. You've finally surrendered. And in that surrender, there's freedom. Every breakdown is actually a breakthrough waiting to happen. Every wound is a place where wisdom can enter. Every loss is making space for something greater. The person who's never been broken doesn't understand mercy. They can't. You can't understand mercy until you've needed it desperately. The person who's never been lost doesn't understand guidance. The person who's never been poor doesn't understand provision. The person who's never been weak doesn't understand strength. Your pain is not pointless. Your struggle is not random. Everything you're going through right now is shaping you into someone who understands, who feels deeply, who can hold space for others in their pain because you've been there. You're being prepared for something greater than yourself. Joy in the journey. So how do you find joy while you're still hurting? You stop waiting for the pain to end before you allow yourself to live. You understand that joy and pain can coexist. They're not opposites. You can be heartbroken and hopeful at the same time. You can grieve what you've lost while being grateful for what remains. You can be struggling and still find moments of peace. Joy is not the absence of pain. Joy is the presence of meaning. It's the presence of trust. It's the presence of surrender to something greater than yourself. When you know that there's a purpose behind your pain, when you trust that there's a wisdom you can't see yet, when you believe that you're being guided even when you feel lost, that's when joy becomes possible. Not because the circumstances changed, but because you changed, your perspective shifted. Your heart remembered where it truly belongs. Start looking for joy in the small things. In the breath you're still breathing. In the sun that still rises. In the fact that you're still here, still trying, still hoping even when it's hard. That's courage. That's strength. That's joy fighting its way through the darkness. The greatest truth. And finally, remember this: you are not your circumstances. You are not your pain. You are not your mistakes or your losses or your failures. You are a soul on a journey. And all of this pain, all of this struggle, it's just one chapter. It's not the whole book. There is joy waiting for you on the other side of this pain. But more than that, there's joy available to you right now. In the middle of it, if you're willing to see it differently, if you're willing to trust that you're exactly where you need to be, that you're being shaped, refined, elevated, your tears are not a sign of weakness. They're proof that you're still alive, still feeling, still caring. Your broken heart is not a sign that you're damaged beyond repair. It's a sign that you're human, that you love deeply, that you gave fully. And maybe, just maybe, this breaking is actually a blessing. Maybe you needed to fall apart so you could be put back together in a better way. Maybe you needed to lose your way so you could find the real path. Maybe you needed your heart to break so it could finally break open. So yes, feel the pain. Don't run from it. But don't let it convince you that joy is impossible. Don't let it steal your hope. Don't let it make you forget who you are and whose you are. You are held, you are loved, you are guided, even now, especially now. And one day, when you look back at this moment, you'll understand why it had to happen exactly this way. You'll see the wisdom you couldn't see. You'll understand the mercy you couldn't feel. And you'll be grateful, not for the pain itself, but for what it taught you, for who it made you, for how it brought you home. That's how you find joy even when you're hurting. You remember that you were never meant to carry this alone. You were never meant to be your own savior. And the moment you stop trying to be, the moment you surrender, the moment you let go, that's when you discover that you've been held all along. And that realization, that trust, that surrender, that coming home, that's the deepest joy there is. You know, when you're in the middle of something painful, it feels like it's going to last forever. It feels permanent. Like this heaviness in your chest, this ache in your soul, it's become who you are now. You wake up with it. You carry it through your day. You go to sleep with it. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispers, this is it. This is my life now. I'm never going to feel light again. I want you to hear me when I say this. That voice is lying to you. Pain feels permanent, but it's not. It never was. It's passing through you, not settling in you. I know it doesn't feel that way. I know when you're drowning, when every breath feels like work, when you can't see beyond today, in those moments, it feels like this is forever. But feelings are not facts. And the feeling of permanence doesn't make something permanent. Think about every difficult thing you've ever been through before this moment. Think about the heartbreak you thought would destroy you 3 years ago. Think about the loss you couldn't imagine surviving 5 years ago. Think about the disappointment, the betrayal, the failure that once consumed your every thought. Where is it now? It passed. It didn't stay. It moved through you like a storm moves through a landscape. It changed you, yes, but it didn't destroy you. You're still here. That's the nature of this world. Everything in it is temporary. The pain is temporary. The struggle is temporary. Even the joy, the comfort, the ease, those are temporary too. Everything that has a beginning has an ending. Everything that arrives will eventually depart. That's not a tragedy. That's mercy. Because if pain were permanent, if suffering had no expiration date, we wouldn't survive. We couldn't. But we do survive. We have survived. And we will continue to survive because pain, by its very nature, is just passing through. But here's what's not temporary you, not the real you, not your soul. Your soul is ancient and eternal. It existed before this pain, and it will exist long after this pain is nothing but a distant memory. Your soul has been on a journey long before you took your first breath in this world, and it will continue long after your last. This pain you're experiencing right now, it's just one moment in an eternal timeline. It's one scene in an infinite story. When you understand that, when you really let that truth sink into your bones, something shifts. The pain doesn't disappear, but it loses its power over you. Because you realize you're bigger than it. Your soul is vaster than any suffering this world can throw at you. You're not a body that happens to have a soul. You're a soul that happens to be in a body. And souls don't break the way bodies do. They don't shatter the way hearts do. They bend, they stretch, they grow, but they don't break. And every single thing you're going through right now, every tear you've cried, every sleepless night, every moment of feeling like you can't go on, it's not destroying your soul, it's refining it. It's elevating it. It's preparing it for something greater. Your trials are not random punishments. They're not signs that you're forgotten or unloved. They're signs that you're being prepared, tested, yes, challenged, absolutely, but also strengthened, also purified, also brought closer to your purpose. You see, pain is how the soul learns. It's how we shed the layers of ego and illusion and attachment that keep us from seeing clearly. It's how we're humbled enough to surrender, broken enough to heal, empty enough to be filled. The soul doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in struggle. It grows when it's forced to reach beyond what it thought were its limits. And every single time you endure, every single time you choose to keep going, even when it's hard, your soul expands. You become more than you were. You become who you were always meant to be. So yes, this hurts. Yes, this is hard. But remember, you are not this pain. And this pain is not forever. Now, let me tell you something that might be hard to hear, but it's the truth that will set you free. Every single time your heart has been broken, it's because you gave it to something that was never meant to hold it. I know that sounds harsh. I know when you're grieving a relationship, when you're mourning a dream, when you're devastated by a loss, the last thing you want to hear is that you shouldn't have attached your heart there in the first place. But stay with me, because understanding this is the key to finding joy even in your pain. See, we live in a world that teaches us to find completion in created things. We're told that the right person will complete us, that the right job will fulfill us, that the right amount of success, money, recognition, that these things will finally make us whole. And so we take our hearts, these precious, sacred hearts that were created for something infinite, and we try to squeeze them into finite containers. We try to find eternal satisfaction in temporary things. And then we're shocked when those things break or leave or change or disappoint us. We're devastated when the person we made our whole world decides to walk away. We're shattered when the dream we built our identity around doesn't come true. We're destroyed when the thing we thought would save us ends up being the thing that breaks us. But here's what we don't understand. Nothing in this world was ever meant to be your savior. Nothing in this world was ever designed to carry the weight of your heart's deepest needs. Not a person, not a career, not a goal, not a title, not a possession. These things are beautiful. They're gifts. They're blessings. But they're not God. And when you treat them like God, when you give them a place in your heart that belongs only to the divine, you're setting yourself up for devastation. Think about it. Have you ever noticed that the more you need something, the more it hurts you? The more you cling to a person, the more distant they become. The more you obsess over a goal, the more anxious you feel. The tighter you grip something, the more it slips through your fingers. That's not a coincidence. That's the universe teaching you that your heart doesn't belong there. Your heart was created with a God-shaped hole in it. And nothing, no person, no achievement, no experience on this earth can fill that hole. You can try. You can spend your whole life trying to fill it with relationships, with success, with validation, with control. But it will never work because you're trying to quench an infinite thirst with finite water. You're trying to fill an ocean-sized need with cupfuls of temporary satisfaction. And this is actually beautiful news because it means that every heartbreak, every disappointment, every loss, it's actually redirecting you. It's teaching you where your heart truly belongs. It's showing you, sometimes painfully, that you are worshiping at the wrong altar, that you are seeking from creation what only the Creator can give you. When you understand this, when you really internalize it, everything changes. You stop demanding from people what they can never give you. You stop expecting from this world what it was never designed to provide. You start holding things loosely, knowing that everything here is temporary. Everything here is just passing through your hands, not meant to be grasped but appreciated. You can still love people. You can still pursue dreams. You can still enjoy the blessings of this life, but you do it differently. You do it with an open hand instead of a clenched fist. You love people, but you don't make them your oxygen. You work toward goals, but you don't make them your identity. You enjoy comfort when it comes, but you don't fall apart when it goes, because your heart is anchored in something that doesn't break. Your heart is attached to something that doesn't leave. Your heart has finally found its home in the only place it was ever meant to rest, in the hands of the one who created it, who sustains it, who will never abandon it. And when your heart is secured there, when your deepest attachment is to what is eternal and unchanging, then everything else becomes lighter. The losses hurt less because you weren't holding on so tightly. The disappointments sting less because your worth wasn't tied to the outcome. The pain is still real, but it doesn't destroy you because your foundation is unshakable. So let this pain teach you. Let it show you where you've been placing your heart, and gently, with compassion for yourself, start bringing it home. You know what's interesting? We spend so much of our lives trying to avoid being broken. We build walls. We protect ourselves. We do everything we can to stay whole, to stay intact, to stay in control. Because we think that brokenness is the worst thing that could happen to us. We think that if we break, we'll never be put back together again. But what if I told you that your brokenness is not your ending? What if I told you that the very thing you're most afraid of, this shattering, this falling apart, this complete undoing of everything you thought you were? What if that's actually the beginning of something beautiful? There's a reason why the darkest moments of your life are often when you feel closest to the divine. There's a reason why your most desperate prayers happen when you're on your knees, broken and empty. There's a reason why the people who have the deepest faith, the most profound wisdom, the greatest compassion, they're usually the ones who've been shattered into a million pieces and somehow found their way back. It's because brokenness does something that nothing else can do. It cracks you open. It strips away all the pretenses, all the masks, all the false ideas you had about who you were and what you needed. It humbles you. It empties you. And in that emptiness, in that vulnerability, there's finally space for something real to enter. When you're whole, or when you think you're whole, you don't need anyone. You don't need help. You don't need guidance. You've got this. You're strong. You're independent. You're fine. And so you go through life thinking you can do it all on your own, thinking you're in control, thinking you don't need to surrender to anything greater than yourself. But then something breaks you. A loss that brings you to your knees. A betrayal that shatters your trust. A failure that destroys your confidence. A grief that empties you completely. And suddenly you can't do it on your own anymore. Suddenly, you need something you can't provide for yourself. Suddenly, you're forced to reach beyond yourself, to cry out, to ask for help, to surrender. And that's when the light gets in. Think about a bowl. When it's intact, when it's whole, it can hold water. It can serve a purpose, but it's limited. It can only hold so much. Now imagine that bowl breaks. Imagine it shatters into pieces. In that moment, it looks like the end. It looks like destruction. It looks like something precious has been ruined beyond repair. But what if those broken pieces, when they're put back together, create something even more beautiful? What if the cracks, those places where it broke, become the most interesting part? What if light shines through those cracks in a way it never could when the bowl was whole? That's what happens to you. Your brokenness is not the end of your story. It's not proof that you're damaged or defective or beyond repair. Your brokenness is where the light enters. It's where mercy finds you. It's where grace pours in. It's where you finally understand what it means to be held, to be guided, to be loved unconditionally. Not because you're strong, but because you're weak. Not because you have it all together, but because you've completely fallen apart. The wound is where the medicine enters. Every single crack in your heart, every place where you've been broken, those aren't flaws. They're openings. They're portals. They're the places where divine light can finally reach you. Because when you were whole, when you had your walls up, when you were protecting yourself so carefully, the light couldn't get in. You wouldn't let it. But now that you're broken, now that your defenses are down, now that you have no choice but to be vulnerable, the light floods in. And more than that, your brokenness makes you useful in ways you never were before. You can't help someone who's drowning if you've never been underwater yourself. You can't comfort someone who's grieving if you've never lost anything. You can't guide someone through darkness if you've never been lost. Your wounds, when they heal, become your credentials. Your pain, when you process it, becomes your purpose. Your brokenness, when you embrace it, becomes your breakthrough. So don't run from this breaking. Don't resist it. Don't be ashamed of it. This is not your destruction. This is your transformation. So let me ask you something. When do you think you're allowed to be happy? When everything is perfect. When all your problems are solved. When the pain finally stops. Is that when joy is permitted to enter your life? Because if that's what you're waiting for, I have to tell you, you're going to be waiting forever. There will always be something. There will always be a struggle, a worry, a fear, and uncertainty. This world, by its very nature, is a place of tests. If you're waiting for all the pain to disappear before you allow yourself to experience joy, you're going to miss your entire life. Joy is not a reward you get for having a perfect life. It's not a prize that's handed to you. Once you've solved all your problems, joy is not the absence of pain. It never was. Some of the most joyful people I've ever met are people who've been through unimaginable hardship. And some of the most miserable people I've ever met are people who, from the outside, seem to have everything. So what's the difference? The difference is meaning. The difference is purpose. The difference is understanding why you're going through what you're going through. You see, we can endure almost anything if we know it has a purpose. A woman in labor is in excruciating pain, but she bears it because she knows a child is coming. An athlete pushes through exhaustion and suffering because they know the medal is waiting. A student stays up night after night studying because they know the degree will open doors. The pain is real. The struggle is real. But it's bearable, sometimes even beautiful, because it means something. That's what changes everything. When you can look at your pain and see purpose in it. When you can look at your struggle and know it's not random. When you can look at your breaking and understand that you're being refined. That's when joy becomes possible. Not because the circumstances changed, but because your perspective did. Every tear you've cried is counted. Every sleepless night is seen. Every moment of feeling like you can't go on, it's not wasted, it's not meaningless. It's shaping you into someone stronger, someone wiser, someone more compassionate. It's preparing you for something you can't see yet. It's elevating your soul to heights it could never reach in comfort. When you know that, when you trust that there's a divine wisdom behind everything that's happening to you, when you believe that you're exactly where you need to be, even when it doesn't make sense, that's when you can experience joy in the middle of pain. That's when you can grieve and be grateful at the same time. That's when you can hurt and still have hope. Because joy is not about having an easy life. Joy is about having a meaningful one. It's about knowing that your pain has a purpose. It's about trusting that there's a plan even when you can't see it. It's about surrendering to a wisdom greater than your own and saying, I don't understand this, but I trust you. I don't like this, but I believe you're with me. This hurts, but I know it's not the end. And here's the beautiful part. When you find joy in the struggle, when you find meaning in the pain, you're no longer waiting for life to be perfect before you start living. You're no longer postponing happiness until some future moment when everything aligns. You're living now. You're present now. You're grateful now. Not because everything is good, but because you can see the good even in what's hard. You start noticing the small mercies. The friend who checked on you. The sunset that took your breath away, even on your worst day. The strength you didn't know you had. The tears that brought relief. The quiet moments of peace in the middle of chaos. These aren't distractions from your pain. They're reminders that joy and pain can coexist. They're proof that you're still alive, still feeling, still connected to something greater. So stop waiting. Stop telling yourself that you'll be happy when the pain ends. Find your joy now. Find it in the meaning of your struggle. Find it in the purpose of your pain. Find it in the knowledge that you're being held, guided, and loved through every single moment, especially the hard ones. Because that's not just how you survive the pain, that's how you transform it into something that makes you more fully alive than you've ever been.